My daughter could never have children. Until I met my impossible grandkids. Admiral Rhea Vance had survived things that broke stronger people. She had commanded fleets in burning skies. She had negotiated with species who wanted humanity erased. She had watched friends die, worlds fall, and stars turn red with war. But nothing was harder than sitting through another strategy meeting. The war table glowed in front of her aboard the Titan's wake, lines of star routes and resource numbers shifting like slow rivers. Officers talked about fuel shortages, border patrol rotations, and supply convoys that kept arriving late. Their voices blended into a dull hum. Rhea kept her face calm, but her mind wandered far from the war room. She thought of her son, Elias. She thought of the day doctors told him he would never father children again. The radiation had cut through his cells like knives. The test showed nothing but ruined strands of DNA. She could still see the look on his face. Shock, shame, quiet heartbreak. He had disappeared soon after. A transfer to a quiet colony at the edge of human space. Beacon, 17, a dusty mining settlement barely held together by rust and hope. He said he needed time. 8 years passed with only short messages. 8 years of please don't visit. 8 years of distance growing thicker than armor. Admiral, a young officer said, pulling her back to the present. Your inspection route tomorrow will take you through the rim. You'll pass Beacon, 17. The name struck her like a physical blow. Her son's refuge. His hiding place. His self-made exile. The officer continued reading from his tablet, unaware of the storm rising behind her calm eyes. Beacon, 17 has no strategic importance. Should we skip it as usual? Rhea straightened in her chair. Her voice came out steady, controlled. No. At an unscheduled stop. The officers exchanged confused glances. But Admiral, there's nothing there. This isn't a strategic stop, she said quietly. It's a personal one. The room fell silent. Rhea rarely used that tone. The tone that meant arguments were pointless. The tone that ended discussions. Yes, Admiral. The officer murmured, marking the route change. Rhea dismissed the meeting soon after, though she barely remembered closing it. She walked through the corridors alone, her boots echoing against metal floors polished by decades of soldiers. Her mind raced faster than the engines outside. What would she find on Beacon 17? Was Elias still angry? Still hurting? Still wishing to be left alone? Or worse, had she waited too long? You should rest, Admiral. Her AI assistant chimed softly as she entered her private quarters. Rhea ignored it. She stood before the wide window, staring out at the drifting stars. They stretched into infinity, cold and unreachable. 8 years, she whispered. 8 years of hoping he would come home. 8 years of fearing she had lost him forever. The pain she carried tightened in her chest. She had led fleets with steady hands, but motherhood had never been something she could command. She couldn't force Elias to return. She couldn't fix what the accident had broken. She couldn't heal a wound that lived in someone else's heart. But she could go to him. She could try. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine his face. Older now. Tired, maybe. Changed by frontier life. Would he smile when he saw her? Or would he turn away? She didn't know. But tomorrow, she would finally step onto that forgotten world. Tomorrow, she would knock on her son's door. And she would face the one mystery war could never prepare her for. Why did Elias really disappear? And what was he hiding out there, beyond the reach of the command? The stars outside shimmered, but Rhea did not look away. Tomorrow could change everything. Or break her all over again. Either way, she was going. 8 years earlier, Elias Vance stepped off a rattling cargo shuttle and onto the dusty soil of Beacon 17, a place most maps didn't even bother showing anymore. The shuttle pilot barely looked at him as he tossed Elias's duffel bag onto the baked ground. Good luck out here, the pilot muttered. Elias only nodded. Luck had stopped mattering years ago. Beacon 17 was not beautiful. The sun was too bright. The wind carried fine red dust that settled into every crack. The small settlement was nothing but prefab metal boxes arranged in crooked rows like someone dropped a handful of buildings from orbit and walked away. Perfect, he thought. He wanted a place where no one saluted him. No one checked his medical files. No one looked at him with pity when they remembered the accident that stole his future. He rented a 3-room shelter from a retired miner named Holt, who seemed too tired to care who he was. You break it, you fix it, Holt said gruffly. Elias nodded. Fair. There was no command structure, no alarms, no mission briefings. The silence was terrifying at first. Then it became a strange kind of comfort. He tried farming on day 3. It went badly. He planted the seeds too deep, flooded the soil, and somehow managed to kill half the starter kit before they even sprouted. When he leaned over to adjust a planter, the sharp metal edge sliced open his palm. Blood dripped onto the dry dirt. He barely felt it. "Great," he muttered. "Can't even keep plants alive." A voice called from over the fence. "You're bleeding all over your future dinner." He turned to see a woman around his age leaning on the boundary post. Messy brown hair tied back, eyes sharp and amused, coveralls stained with dust and machine oil. "I'm Nova," she said. "You're new, and you're gardening wrong." "I noticed," Elias replied, holding up his bleeding hand. Nova sighed. "That's not a wait and see wound. Come on. The clinic isn't far. And you look like the stubborn type who won't go unless someone drags you." He should have walked away. He should have kept his distance. But something in her voice, steady, practical, pulled him along. The clinic was a cramped metal unit with humming generators and shelves of mismatched medical equipment. Nova cleaned his wound with surprising gentleness. "You're not from a place like this," she said casually as she sealed the cut. "You talk like someone who grew up around perfect machines and polished floors." Elias stiffened. "I'm just traveling." "Sure," she said, clearly not believing him. "But if you want to grow food out here, you'll need help. Frontier soil is different. It's stubborn. Like you, I think." He snorted despite himself. Over the next weeks, Nova appeared with advice, tools, and sometimes food when he burned his attempts at cooking. She laughed easily, moved with confidence, and seemed to understand him without pushing for answers. She visited his garden so often that Elias began expecting the soft knock at his door, though he never said so aloud. One evening, she found him staring at his failed plants again. "You know," she said, kneeling beside him, "Beacon 17 isn't a place people come to start over. It's a place people come to disappear." He froze. Nova didn't look at him. She pressed her hands into the dirt, testing its texture. "I'm not asking why you're here," she said softly. "Everyone carries something. I carry mine too. But you don't have to carry yours alone." The words hit him harder than any battle wound. Elias sat back, staring at the sky turning gold over Beacon 17's rough shapes. No judgment, no pity, just someone willing to sit in the dirt beside him. Over the months that followed, their connection grew in quiet moments. Sharing meals, fixing leaking pipes, tending stubborn seedlings, laughing at their mutual failures. Elias had been certain his heart was done, but Beacon 17's slow days gave him space to breathe again. And Nova, without meaning to, gave him permission to hope again. One night, as a rare cool wind drifted over the colony, Nova said gently, "You don't talk like a drifter. You talk like someone who once mattered." Elias swallowed hard. "I'm not him anymore," he whispered. Nova looked at him for a long moment. "You're still someone," she said. "And that still counts." Elias didn't answer. But for the first time in years, he wanted to. He had no idea that the life he was building, quiet, fragile, unexpected, was about to grow into something he never believed possible. Something the galaxy would one day call impossible. Beacon 17 lived on routine. That was what Elias liked most about it. Days were slow, predictable, and mercifully quiet. But the quiet ended the morning Nova barged into his shelter with a look he had never seen on her face. She wasn't angry, or scared, or excited. She was everything all at once. "Elias," she said breathlessly, "you need to sit down." He blinked. "Why? What happened? Is the clinic okay?" "Just sit." Elias sat. Nova remained standing, wringing her hands, pacing the length of his tiny living room. It was the first time he had ever seen her nervous. "I ran some tests," she said finally. "I thought you had a flu," Elias replied. "I told you to rest." "It's not a flu." Pause. "It's different." He frowned. "Different how?" Nova stopped pacing. She looked straight at him. "I'm pregnant." The world tilted. "No," he whispered. You can't be." Her eyes softened. "I know what you were told." "Nova, my DNA is damaged. Destroyed. They ran every test. There is zero chance." "Elias," she said firmly, "I ran my own tests. Twice. There's a heartbeat." He shook his head violently, as if the movement could erase her words. "No. Something's wrong. The scanner must be faulty." "It's not faulty." She stepped closer. I checked it with 3 different systems. He was trembling now. Nova, it isn't possible. It is, she whispered. Because humans don't give up as easily as your military doctors did. The room felt too small, too hot, too bright. Elias rose abruptly and stepped outside. The harsh beacon, 17 wind hit him, but it didn't clear his mind. He walked into the dusty yard, breathing hard, hands on his knees. Nova followed quietly. I know this is a lot, she said, keeping her distance. I know what they told you. But I also know human medicine works differently. We repair things your doctors don't even try to fix. Elias squeezed his eyes shut. The memory of cold medical rooms flooded back. The pity in the doctors' faces. The quiet apologies. The feeling of something inside him dying long before Beacon, 17. That accident ruined everything, he said. My cells couldn't even divide properly. They showed me the scans. I looked at your scans too, Nova said gently. And yes, the damage is extensive. But some strands repaired themselves. Not perfectly, not fully, but enough. Enough for what? Enough for life, she whispered. He stared at her as though afraid she might vanish. Are you telling me I can be a father? I'm telling you that you already are. Elias staggered back, overwhelmed by a mix of hope and terror. It felt like someone had torn open a door in his chest he had boarded shut years ago. How? He finally asked. How is it even happening? Nova took out a small handheld scanner and projected a hologram. The faint outline of a tiny heartbeat pulsed like a star trying to ignite. Human embryonic medicine has centuries of genetic problem-solving built into it, she explained. Your accident caused chaos in your DNA, but your body didn't stop trying. The damaged areas formed bypass loops. New strands grew around the broken ones. It's messy science, Elias, but it's enough for hybrid compatibility. Elias didn't understand half of it, but he understood the heartbeat. That single impossible sound. His knees gave out, and he sat in the dirt, tears slipping down his cheeks. Nova knelt beside him. She touched his hand, but didn't push him to speak. Finally, Elias whispered, I don't deserve this. Nova leaned her head against his shoulder. If anyone deserves a second chance, it's you. He shook his head. What if the baby isn't healthy? What if my damaged genes ruin everything? What if? We'll face every risk together, Nova said calmly. You won't lose this alone. They stayed like that in silence, wind sweeping red dust around them. Later that night, they contacted a group of specialized human geneticists working in the next sector, a team Nova trusted. She shared Elias's old medical files. The reply came an hour later. The chances are extremely low, but not zero. We recommend monitoring and supportive gene therapy. This is rare, but not impossible. Elias held the message in shaking hands. A miracle, but fragile. A chance, but small. A future, but uncertain. He looked at Nova, who watched him with a courage he felt he didn't have. This child, he whispered. This child shouldn't exist. Nova smiled, wiping away one of his tears. Sometimes the universe makes room for the impossible. Elias took a slow breath. For the first time in 8 long years, a spark of hope lit inside him. He didn't know then that this impossible child would change everything. For him. For Nova. For Beacon, 17. And for the mother who believed she had lost him forever. The Titan's wake descended toward Beacon, 17 with a low rumble that shook the colony's old metal walls. Most settlers looked up, confused. Military cruisers didn't come here. This place wasn't dangerous enough. Or important enough. Admiral Rhea Vance stood at the shuttle ramp wearing simple civilian clothing, though nothing could hide the sharp posture of someone born to command fleets. She dismissed her escort team before they could argue. I go alone, she said. Admiral, that's an order. The ramp lowered. Heat rose from the dusty ground. Beacon, 17 looked even smaller than she remembered from the last supply report. Rhea inhaled slowly. 8 years. 8 years of fear. 8 years of silence. She walked down the uneven path, past solar grids patched with tape, and children chasing each other across the sand. Her heart pounded harder than it ever had during battle. She approached a small shelter with a crooked antenna and a garden fenced with scrap metal. The plants were surprisingly healthy, vines curling around metal poles, bright green leaves shimmering in the harsh light. Elias's garden, she thought. Her throat tightened. She raised a hand and knocked on the door. A moment passed. Then the door opened, and time broke. Elias stood in the doorway, older than she remembered, with sun-browned skin and tired eyes. His hair was longer, tied back in a rough knot. His hands were calloused, his clothes dusty. "Mom?" he whispered, disbelief cracking his voice. You're early." She stared at him. He stared at her. Nearly a decade of unspoken words pressed between them. "I needed to see you," she said. "That's all." Before he could respond, something crashed inside the house. A child's voice yelled, "I didn't do it." Another voice shouted, "Yes, you did." Rhea froze. "Children?" Elias turned pale. Give me a second," he stammered. The decision of whether to step inside or turn back evaporated when a little girl ran into the doorway. She was no older than 5, with dark curls, bright green eyes, and a wooden toy spaceship clutched in her hand. She skidded to a stop when she saw Rhea. "Oh," the girl breathed. "Are you new? Why are you staring?" Rhea's heart dropped into her stomach. She looked like. No, it couldn't be. Another child popped out from behind a table, older, maybe 6, with messy hair and a smudge of dirt on his face. He studied Rhea with narrowed eyes like a tiny soldier guarding a fortress. "Daddy," he called, "someone's here." "Daddy." The word hit Rhea like a ship collision. Elias stepped forward helplessly. "Mom, I can explain." Before he could, a soft voice drifted from deeper inside the home. "Elias? Who's at the door?" A woman stepped into view, holding a baby against her shoulder. Nova. Warm eyes. Steady presence. A mother. Rhea stared at the baby, tiny, wrapped in a soft blanket, sleeping peacefully. 3 children. Her son had 3 children. She felt the ground shift beneath her. "No," she whispered. This is impossible. Elias, you can't." He swallowed hard. "I know what they told me. What they told you. But, Mom, these are mine." The girl stepped forward shyly. "Hi," she said. "I'm Mira. Are you someone important?" "Daddy says important people stand like that." Rhea choked on a laugh and a sob at the same time. "Elias," she said, her voice cracking. "You told me you couldn't have children. You told me it was permanent. Your doctors. They were wrong," he whispered. "Or maybe human medicine found something different. But Mom, I have a family now." The boy marched forward bravely. "I'm Jax," he declared. I watched the door. "Are you a bad guy?" Nova winced. "Honey." Rhea's knees gave out. The children stared in alarm as the Admiral, a woman who commanded entire sectors, sank into the dust at their feet. "I'm your grandmother," she whispered, barely able to say the words. "Your grandmother." Myra's eyes went wide, sparkling with awe. "We have a grandma," she cried. "Jax, we have a grandma." Jax blinked, then nodded firmly. "That seems allowed." Nova gently touched Rhea's shoulder. "We didn't mean for it to happen like this." Rhea laughed weakly through tears. "Neither did I." Elias knelt beside her. "I should have told you." "I know. I was afraid." "Afraid I'd take them?" Rhea asked softly. Elias didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth sat heavy in the air. Jack stepped closer, leaning toward her ear. "It's okay if you cry," he whispered. "Mira cries all the time." "Do not," Mira protested. Rhea wiped her tears, overwhelmed. She looked at the tiny sleeping baby, at the children staring at her with innocent curiosity, at her son, standing there with a life she never imagined. "This changes everything," she whispered. Elias nodded. "So do 3 kids." Rhea took a shaking breath. "May I come inside?" Mira grabbed her hand eagerly. "Yes. Come see our house." Jax broke a chair, but Daddy said he'll fix it. Jax scowled. It was an accident. And just like that, Rhea Vance stepped into a world she never knew existed. A world where her son hadn't been lost at all. He had been found. The house on Beacon, 17 was too small for the noise it held. Dinner felt like a controlled explosion, clattering dishes, children talking over one another, the baby fussing from Nova's arms. Steam drifted from a pot of stew that smelled faintly of herbs grown in the yard. Rhea sat at the tiny table, her knees nearly touching the underside. She had eaten at banquet halls carved from asteroid stone, aboard flagships with dining rooms larger than this entire shelter. But she had never felt so unsteady, so overwhelmed, so human. Mira talked nonstop about her space lizard drawings. Jax described how he fixed a broken hover toy using a spoon and tape. The baby made soft noises that melted Rhea's heart each time she heard them. Elias and Nova moved in an easy rhythm, passing bowls, calming the kids, exchanging quick glances full of the kind of love people fought wars to protect. Rhea tried to swallow a bite of stew. She barely tasted it. Her mind was too full. Children. 3 of them. Miracles she hadn't known existed. When the children finally ran toward their room, Mira holding Jax's sleeve like a leash, Jax pretending to be a racing robot, Nova exhaled in relief. "That buys us 10 minutes," she said, leaning back in her chair. Rhea watched her son. He looked free. No rank on his collar. No weight pulling him down. "Elias," she began carefully, "why didn't you tell me?" Her son hesitated. His hands tightened around his cup. "Because I thought you'd come for them," he said quietly. The words hit Rhea like a blade. "Come for them," she repeated. "As in take them?" Elias raised his eyes to hers. Pain flickered there. Old pain, carved deep. "You're a hero in the fleet, Mom. And heroes get turned into symbols. Command sees everything you touch as a tool for the greater good. I didn't want my children to become part of that machine." Rhea inhaled sharply. He wasn't wrong. Children with Elias's genetic anomaly would trigger endless tests. Hybrid studies. Political interest. Strategic interest. They would have been taken, for safety, then raised under bright lights and careful voices. Just like Elias had been raised. She felt sick. "You thought I would allow that?" she whispered. Elias didn't look away. "I thought you'd follow orders. You always have." Rhea closed her eyes, ashamed of how true that was. How many times had she chosen duty over family? Over him. Nova spoke gently. "He was afraid, Admiral. Not of you, but of everything around you." Rhea looked at her. This woman who had saved her son's heart, who had given him a life he never believed he could have. "What about you?" Rhea asked. "Were you afraid I'd take them?" Nova smiled softly. "No. I always believed you'd love them. I just wasn't sure when you'd get the chance." The baby fussed, and Nova rose to rock her, humming a quiet tune. Rhea felt a crack inside her chest widen, something old breaking apart, something new trying to form. "All this time," she murmured, "I thought you were alone. I thought you were living in silence and pain. And instead, I was building something," Elias finished. "Something fragile. Something I wasn't ready to share." Rhea nodded slowly. "And what changed?" Elias hesitated. Then he gestured toward the back room, where 2 small voices were now arguing about who got the top bunk. "That," he said simply. "They deserve a grandmother. They deserve to know they come from more than a mining colony and scrap metal toys." His voice softened. "I wanted them to know you. I was just waiting for the courage to tell you." Rhea reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "I'm here now," she said. "And no one, no commander, no council, no law, will take them from you. Not while I live." A tear slipped down Elias's cheek. He didn't wipe it away. Nova returned, the baby sleeping against her shoulder. "That's not all we're worried about," she said quietly. "There's something else." Rhea tensed. "Tell me." Nova exchanged a look with Elias, then sat across from Rhea. "If word gets out," Nova said, "your enemies won't see children. They'll see leverage." Rhea's breath caught. Enemies. Of course. She had them everywhere, from warlords to rival admirals to alien factions who hated humanity. Elias rubbed his forehead. "If the galaxy finds out, Mom, people will come here. People who want to hurt them to hurt you." Rhea felt cold. Nova continued softly. "We're not asking you to leave. We're asking you to help us keep them hidden. At least until they're older." Rhea looked toward the children's room door. She saw Myra's little shoes. Jax's half-built wooden spaceship. A small blanket fallen on the floor. Her grandchildren. She stood slowly, placing a gentle hand on the wall for balance. "I will protect them," she said in a low, steady voice. "Not as an admiral, not as a symbol, but as their grandmother." Elias exhaled shakily. Nova smiled with relief. Rhea didn't smile back, not yet. She was already thinking, calculating, building a plan. A plan even the galaxy wouldn't see coming. Rhea Vance had stood on war-torn planets, faced alien warlords, and commanded fleets larger than entire nations. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for waking up in her son's tiny beacon, 17 home with 3 small children climbing on her before dawn. "Grandma, Grandma, wake up." Mira bounced on the edge of the cot. Jax poked her cheek. The baby, cradled in Nova's arms, gurgled at her like she was the most interesting thing in the galaxy. Rhea groaned into her pillow. "I have survived orbital bombardments," she muttered. "Why is this harder?" Mira gasped. "You got bombarded?" Did you explode? Nova laughed from the doorway. Welcome to Mornings on Beacon 17, Admiral. Rhea sat up slowly. Admiral. That title felt strangely heavy here, strangely out of place. Here, she wasn't the strategic mind of the Terran frontier. She was Grandma, apparently a pillow, a climbing structure, and a morning entertainment unit. And she loved it. Terrifyingly, unexpectedly, loved it. The first day, she tried to help with breakfast. Tried. Nova handed her a pan. Just stir the eggs. Rhea nodded confidently. She had commanded Starship reactors. Surely she could handle eggs. 5 minutes later, Jax wrinkled his nose. Is it supposed to be black? Nova took the pan from Rhea without judgment. Why don't you set the table, Admiral? Rhea gladly accepted the safer job. They ate together, crowded around the small table. Mira talked nonstop about school. Jax bragged about digging another important hole outside. The baby curled quietly in Rhea's arms, warm and impossibly small. For a woman who lived surrounded by metal corridors and hard decisions, the simple warmth of that moment nearly broke her. The second day, Elias found Rhea outside inspecting the solar rig. The panels were old, clogged with dust, and mismatched with newer parts. Who built this thing? Rhea asked. Me, Elias said, offended. It looks like it was assembled by blind pirates. Mom, it works. It shouldn't. She reached for a wrench. Move. Together, they spent half the day repairing equipment. It felt like old times, her teaching him rolling his eyes, but listening anyway. They argued about wiring, teased each other, and worked in a rhythm that felt natural despite the years apart. At one point, Elias paused and said softly, I missed this. Rhea froze. So did I. He looked at her with the unspoken hurt of 8 years. Then why didn't you come sooner? Rhea inhaled sharply. Because I thought you didn't want me to, she said. And I didn't want to break whatever life you were building. He didn't answer, but he didn't look away. It was enough. The third day, she spent it entirely with the children. Mira insisted on teaching her how to water plants the right way. You have to be nice to them, Mira said seriously. If you yell at them, they won't grow. Rhea, who had yelled at entire armies, nodded solemnly. I will be gentle with the plants. Jax showed her his research lab, which was really a pile of rocks arranged in patterns that only made sense to children. What does this one do? Rhea asked. It's a communication stone, Jax said proudly. It talks to other rocks. Oh, Rhea said. That's advanced. He beamed. The baby, meanwhile, slept against her chest for hours, tiny fingers gripping her uniform like she was an anchor. Rhea found herself whispering stories from her early days in the fleet. Adventures she had never told Elias. Memories she had buried under decades of orders and duty. The baby made small sounds, as if listening. Rhea realized she was crying again. How strange, she thought, wiping her tears. To face war with a steel heart, yet fall apart at the sound of a child's breath. A conversation that mattered. That evening, after the children were finally asleep, Rhea joined Elias and Nova at the table. The lamp flickered softly. Outside, the wind rattled the old metal siding. Elias spoke first. What happens now? Rhea folded her hands. I return to my ship tomorrow, but not the same way I arrived. Nova exchanged a look with Elias. Meaning your children's existence will remain hidden, Rhea said firmly. I will rewrite protocol if I must. Their lives will be protected. Their identities will be sealed. No tests. No political interest. No military involvement. Nova let out a breath of relief. Elias stared at her in disbelief. You do that, he asked. I already have enemies in high places, Rhea said. I'll happily add a few more. But the fleet. I command the fleet, Rhea interrupted. And I will not let it touch this family. Silence filled the room. Soft, warm, heavy with gratitude and pain and hope. Then Elias asked quietly, But what about you? Rhea blinked. Me? Elias nodded. Do you want to be part of their lives? Rhea's voice cracked. I want nothing more. Nova reached across the table, touching Rhea's hand. Then you will be. A new start. They sat together in the dim light, the three adults bound by a truth that changed all their futures. The children slept in the next room. The stars hung silent above the metal roof. And for the first time in a very long time, Rhea Vance felt like she wasn't just an admiral. She felt like a mother, a grandmother, a person who had found something she didn't even know she had lost. Tomorrow she would leave. But tonight, Tonight she belonged here. With them. Rhea Vance didn't sleep the night before her departure. Not because of fear or tension, she had lived with those for decades, but because she couldn't stop listening to the quiet sounds of the house. Myra's soft humming as she talked to her toys in the next room. Jax turning over in his sleep with a dramatic sigh. The baby making tiny breaths against Nova's shoulder. And Elias, awake like her, moving around the house with silent steps, trying not to disturb anyone. He paused near the doorway where she sat, staring out at the beacon 17 sky, faint stars lost in the dust-laden atmosphere. Can't sleep either, he asked. Rhea didn't look up. No, I don't want this night to end. Elias sat beside her. I thought you'd try to convince us to come back, he admitted quietly. To the frontier stations. To the heart of the fleet. To somewhere safer. Rhea exhaled, long and slow. For years, I believed that safety meant walls and soldiers and shields, she said. But after seeing this place, after seeing you with them, I finally understand. She turned to him. You're safer here than anywhere else. Elias nodded, relief shining through his tired eyes. The farewell morning. The sun rose too soon. Nova prepared breakfast, though she was still half asleep and wearing mismatched socks. Mira helped, mostly by spilling things. Jax tried to build a goodbye tower from cups, which fell over every 10 seconds. Rhea wanted to memorize everything. Every voice. Every smell. Every laugh. Her shuttle would arrive in 20 minutes. When the meal ended, Jax tugged on her sleeve. Do grandmas leave? He asked, a serious crease between his brows. Rhea knelt to meet his eyes. Only if they promised to come back. Jax considered this, then nodded. That seems fair. Mira climbed into Rhea's lap, wrapping her small arms around her neck. Next time, can you bring a robot? She whispered. A real one. Rhea smiled, feeling her heart crack again. If command lets me. Mira gasped. You have to tell them it's for important grandma stuff. I will, Rhea promised. The baby reached toward her with tiny fingers, and Rhea held her close, memorizing the warmth, the softness. She didn't realize how much she was shaking until Nova gently steadied her. You don't have to say anything, Nova said softly. We know. But Rhea needed to say it anyway. You saved him, she whispered. More than I ever could. Nova's smile was small, but full of quiet pride. He saved me too. A promise made in dust. When they stepped outside, the shuttle was descending through the pale sky. Beacon 17's wind picked up, swirling red dust around them. Elias stood with his children gathered near his legs. He looked both proud and afraid. Rhea placed a hand on his face. I failed you once, she said. I won't fail you again. You never failed me, Elias replied. You just didn't know how much I was hurting. Rhea pulled him into her arms. The kind of hug she hadn't given him since he was a boy heading to officer training. I'm here now, she whispered. And I'm staying in your lives as long as you allow it. He held her tightly. You always have a place here. The shuttle engines roared as it touched down. Mira covered her ears and screamed with excitement. Jax pointed at it like he was calling out a threat. The baby slept through everything. Rhea knelt one final time. Mira, she said softly, keep drawing your space lizards. I will. Jax, look after your sister. I already do, he said with absolute confidence. And little one, Rhea traced a finger along the baby's tiny hand. I'll see you grow. Departure. Once aboard the shuttle, Rhea stood at the window. Elias had his arm around Nova. Mira waved both hands wildly. Jax saluted with perfect seriousness. The baby squirmed in Nova's arms, unaware of everything. A sight she never imagined in all her years of command. A sight that changed her forever. As the shuttle lifted off, dust curling beneath it, something inside Rhea clicked into place. Her future wasn't just battle plans and negotiations. It wasn't only command halls and war tables. It was them. Their laughter. Their tiny shoes by the door. Their drawings. Their questions. Their existence. In that moment, she made a decision so large it felt like a new star forming. When she returned to the fleet, she would reorganize everything. New succession laws. New privacy protections. A sealed file on Beacon 17. A hidden security grid around the settlement. And a personal priority. No government. No enemy. No force in the galaxy would touch those children. Not while she lived. Not even after. They would be free. Free to grow. Free to choose. Free to be children. The shuttle pierced through the cloud layer, rising into open space. Rhea stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes fierce. She was no longer just Admiral Vance. She was a grandmother with the wrath of a fleet behind her. And as she looked at the stars, she whispered to them, "I'll protect them, whatever it takes." A new chapter in her life had begun. And for the first time in decades, Rhea Vance felt something she thought war had taken from her forever: hope.